Have you ever heard the saying, everyone should work in the service industry at least once in their life? Well, if you haven't, you should. And here's three things I learned working in the food and dining and service industry. So, basically, food, dining, service industry, these are industries where you have to kind of interface with a customer. You're operating a cashier, you're a waiter, you're the cashier, you're the host, or you're just someone who's providing tickets because you work at the DMV. It doesn't matter, but the service industry is very valuable for learning a lot about communication skills, social skills, emotional intelligence, and customer service, which are at the core of any successful business that operates with customers. So as you can start to see, it has a lot of value, and I wanted to share a couple things I learned in the industry, and it might help you either have a better attitude if you do end up working somewhere like Chick-fil-A or maybe even somewhere different like the DMV, or at least get you to consider trying these out before you just go off to school or college or get a office job. So the first big thing I learned in the service industry is that honestly, a lot of it is friendliness, positivity, respect, customer service, clear, crisp communication, empathy. All these skills are in play because you are talking to real humans. And that's a big deal because a lot of people, they neglect these skills, or some of them may have developed some of them, but they've never really put them to practice on a daily basis. And when you are interacting with customers constantly, you learn a lot and you can really start to develop your skills and get them to a higher level. Even people who are maybe more naturally good at social skills, they can really learn more because you might be good in one subdomain of that, like talking to friends or classmates, or even at an internship where you're interfacing with mostly your mentor. But in the service industry, you may have to talk to 80 strangers a day, or maybe less, maybe more. But it could be a great opportunity to really stretch your social muscles and understand what it's like to be in a business. I've worked various service jobs over the years. I've worked at a escape room. I've worked in various outlets in the food and dining space, and they've all taught me a lot about different aspects of communication. And yes, that brings me to my second bit of advice. Yes, you will make mistakes, but that's okay. As long as you reflect and learn from them. Let me break down some of the mistakes I saw myself make and others make. One thing I found is a lot of the times you will get your emotions tested. Now, obviously, it depends on the job you take. The service industry is a very broad range of skill sets. So let's say you get something as let's say you get a job at Chick-fil-A as a cashier. That is probably different from someone working at a Walmart, and that's different from someone working in a fast-paced fine dining restaurant. You see, all of these things have different amounts of time that you have to interact with a customer for. And Chick-fil-A would be a great one because they really have a great reputation for customer service, and that's because the culture and the management teaches that. But if you were working at Popeyes or McDonald's, it could be a different thing where maybe just the culture of that specific franchise location has you just saying, like, just give them their order. If they don't like it, well, too bad. Then you're not really spending much time interacting with them other than pushing buttons. So choosing the right job can have a little bit of an impact on how much actual learning and exposure you get. But even in the worst jobs, with the right attitude and mindset, you on your own can still learn and grow even while your peers aren't, because you're picking up and experiencing and paying attention to those things when others aren't. And that can really help you because everyone else is just like, oh, this is just a job. And that can really help you later on in life, whether you're a manager, a CEO, or any job where you're interacting with others, which happens all the time. I mean, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, what business you're running, you're going to be interacting with other humans. It can be very useful. Another big mistake I saw was the amount of anger, frustration that would erupt, especially in those high-paced, fast-paced settings. Let's A great example would be rush or peak hours. I worked at a restaurant, and at one point, usually on holidays or at a certain time at night, it got so busy that you just knew, you know, each time this happened, it would get really bad. And not only do you have to control your emotions when someone disrespects you or someone, you know, gets mad at you for no reason, or gives you directions and then flips out at you for following those directions even though you were supposed to follow those directions. Uh, you have to control your emotions, but also I've learned that you have to be aware of other people who are also imperfect beings. And so it's not just about dealing with your own imperfect self, it's acknowledging and accepting that all these other people, sometimes they're going to flip their lid, and you know, it's super stressful and they got so many orders to deal with that they can't keep up. And at least based on the environment I was in, it wasn't my ideal, but I was able to experience some very interesting moments where some people would just flip out for no reason at you, and you had nothing to do with it. And it wasn't fair, but you started to see, like, wow, this is what happens when humans really get really stressed. They direct your anger at something else. They'll blame someone else that's not even related. And sometimes the best move is not to put more fire on the stove. And the next tip I want to mention is about when you're doing this, there's going to be bad customers, just as there are bad customer service employees. And so what I've learned being on both sides of the fence, being on the receiving end of people that just don't care. You know, I go to Kava, or I go to some type of fast food place, Chipotle or Qdoba, and I'll get cashiers or servers who just really could give a crap less. And it kind of sucked because, you know, you get that, you could feel that, and then they get your order wrong and they could care less, and you just sense that, and it's just a terrible service. But then on the other end, you know, I could be that customer service person who's just, you know, positive, happy, and then you just get nasty customers. You know, this even happened sometimes when I was volunteering. That's right, I wasn't even paid for it, but there's a few times where I did do a couple volunteering events. One where I was serving beer at this kind of beer charity festival by a zoo. It was kind of like a zoo partnership. But the point is, I was serving this beer and it was going well, positive as always. And then, you know, sure enough, it's just kind of the law of large numbers. I hit someone who's not so nice. And, you know, this person is nasty. And that just happens. And you have to deal with it. You have to have that positive attitude and friendliness. Some people, I think, take it a bit too far. And they have this like facade of like always positive, friendly, nice, smiling. And you can tell it's a bit disingenuous. I've seen coworkers do that. And for me personally, I'm just like, that's a little bit too far. But in general, like that's generally the kind of thing that you have to do sometimes. Like you have to have that positive, friendly attitude, even when they're kind of rude and kind of mean to you. And just having that empathy and understanding why they're upset about the order or whatnot can really help you out. So in some ways, it kind of sucks because no matter which side of the fence I am, there's always someone out there who is just nasty or indifferent. But you can't always control that, and that's usually the minority when you really think about it. The best you can do is, whether you're on either side of the fence, show that positivity. You never want to be the person who's just terrible to deal with and no one wants to be around. That just leaves a bad legacy for you, and you know, You're not making the world a better place. And so that's another part of it. You know, a lot of people, a lot of women will say, hey, I will judge a man based on how they treat the waiter or waitress. And that's really important. A lot of others, whether you work in the service industry or not, a lot of others have. And since they've been on the other side of the fence, they know how stressful and tough and hectic it can be. And so they appreciate when someone can be kind and generous and respectful of that, despite, you know, everything that's going on. And the guy who's entitled or treats that waitress badly without needing to, I mean, it's just a lack of foresight, a lack of understanding. And of course, that's why some women will see that as a turnoff in the dating world. So the point though is that emotional intelligence, communication skills can really up-level your career, your performance in school, your internships, and your income over time, because they're critically related to anything around business, around in exchange of values. Even if you're some type of data analyst who hides behind a computer all the time and programs and doesn't want to interact with people, you're going to have to interact with someone at some point. You probably have a manager, you probably have other coworkers, you probably have customers who pay you, and that's a vulnerability, that's a weakness that is going to limit your pay if you're this recluse who barely speaks to the person and just gives very concise responses or automated responses. You're going to be put at a disadvantage if you don't work on that skill set, because your competitors will, and your customers will sense something's off, something's distant, and they may go to a competitor eventually if they're not feeling that warmth. So yeah, in summary, customer service and that service industry is a skill set that you may want to try out, whether that's as a bartender or something else. You know, that's something I want to try one day. I hear a bartender, they get just very savvy and very socially skilled over time, just because of the environment and exposure they're in, constantly interacting with so many different types of people and being able to gauge individuals. So that's all my bucket list to be one day, just for fun, for a short while. Whether that's a year, 6 months, or even less, it could be a genuine good learning experience. But you know, at least a month. You don't want to quit in 2 days. That doesn't really count. And I would say the last bit of advice is, you know, with these kind of service jobs, it's important to kind of focus on the positive, focus on the value you're providing. Obviously, you know, the work, the purpose of the company could help you have that better vision. But also, I say this because there will be times where you have crappy people that you deal with. And sometimes you have to kind of look beneath the surface and ask yourself, is it really just them, or is it me? And how can I improve it? And sometimes the issue is kind of a mixture. And if you're not careful, it can kind of compound into something crazy. One time I was in a pleasant mood, and I walked out of the kitchen at this job, and there was this person there, and you could tell he was somewhat angry. And usually, in a lot of these cases, he didn't really communicate or deliver it effectively. And you'd be surprised, because sometimes it's just like, why would you do anything like that? And so, you know, I asked him, hey, is there anything I could do? And he just blew up at me. And apparently he had been waiting there for like 20 minutes or something for his order. And it was a very busy time. And he tore it out on me. And even though he had apparently talked to 2 or 3 other employees before me trying to wait for his order. And of course I can tell why this sucks, but at the same time I was just kind of pissed off at him. One, for taking it all out on me and yelling, screaming at me like it was completely my fault. And it was a large place with moving parts, so it wasn't fair in that sense. And then 2, it was 20 minutes. Like, have you obviously that's long and that sucks, and I'll do my best to improve it. But have you never been to a Chipotle or a Qdoba or a Walmart or the DMV? Um, I've been in countless situations, and I'm half your age, and you're blowing up at me because of this. I've been in countless situations where all of a sudden, unexpectedly, the wait was 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, and it sucks. But over time, I've learned, like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm alive, and I'm not going to let this trivial thing just turn me into this toxic thing and it just tear down others. And I'm just, I just enjoy the wait as much as I can and be kind. But apparently this guy, despite his old age and wisdom and everything else, still didn't realize it. And so unfortunately, it sucked. And I tried to say like, hey, I'm so sorry about this. Let me figure out how I can get this fixed for my management. And he was just scathing at me. Who knows what was behind the scenes? Maybe he was late to some like surgery or something. Who knows? But he didn't explain why. He was just mad at me. Maybe he was just impatient. Who knows? And so he took it out on me. And unfortunately, I got a little angry at him too. And, the way I said it was not very nice. And it was like, geez, really? And so I brought it up to my manager. He said, I already am aware of it. I'm trying to get this settled out. So it can get very tough at times, and it sometimes does suck. But even in those situations, you learn, if you become a student of human nature and you learn about how humans operate, you really get a better sense of this skill set, which will help you operate in the world. Because you learn things like, wow, humans are imperfect creatures. And, no matter how rich some of these people are or how whatever else, you just get some peculiar situations where, this guy's successful in certain areas of life, and yet they just come across very, very immature. And you have to figure out how to best deal with that and most effectively deal with that, not only to deliver the most value, but also the best customer experience, and just to communicate effectively in the most harmonious ways with people to get the job done. And so I could talk about this for a long time, but service jobs, very interesting, very fun, and sometimes not so fun areas in life. But if you look at the bright side, if you're doing good work, if you're learning, if you're growing, if you're practicing, and you're gaining that experience, some people even like this type of stuff and they can grow from it, or they just enjoy communicating with people. So if and you also have to realize that there are some moments of surprise in a good way as well. While there are people who you wouldn't expect to really flip out in this horrible way, there are others who really respect you and kind of give you that head nod. I've gotten tips when, I was just doing what I've always been doing in that friendly, positive, effective manner. And oftentimes, you serve hundreds of people and nothing will happen. But then every now and then someone will recognize you for your work and they'll give you that tip. And that's always nice. Or sometimes it's not even monetary. Sometimes I've had this happen on rare occasion, but they'll be like, hey, out of all the employees here, you're the one who I always see go the extra mile and do all that work. And I really appreciate you for that. And it wasn't like here's $20, but that's the type of stuff that I think in the long run will get you ahead. No, did it get me promoted there? It did not. Did others really notice it? To an extent, and that's why I think I was a valued employee. But overall, you have to, have faith in the process and then market yourself. And because, after you collect a bunch of those, you can present that to your boss and say, hey, look at all these compliments I'm getting. Look at how others are not really performing. Here's why I should get that raise. And by marketing and presenting it and having all that, those are the steps that will get you ahead. I think I want to end with one final good memory. In the service job industry, sometimes you will get crappy people. And so sometimes you just expect a neutral bit of behavior. I mentioned high income because in that previous story, the place I worked at was a more high income location. And one great memory I had was um, I served this one kid there a few times, and it was fantastic. This guy was probably in middle school, maybe younger. He was so respectful, so friendly, so kind, and so polite to me. And you could tell that his parents taught him well, because none of the other kids were really doing that. And no, I never got anyone who was snobbish or excessively spoiled. But I was just like, man, this person really gets me right. This person is legit. He obviously comes from a high income family, but he's been taught right, or he's just chosen to make the right decisions in life. And he's treating me like a human. Just the things he says, the thank you, the please, the way he looks me in the eyes when he orders, all these other things, it really meant a lot to me. I don't know if I ever said thank you back to him. I think I did. I said like, hey, thank you so much for treating me so well and being so friendly and polite. But the point is, those things go a long way. And I knew he was going to go far in life just off that small moment. Obviously, I can't really make any conclusions based off just that behavior, but I thought that was a really cool thing for him to do. And it was one of those moments where it was like, yeah, a win-win situation. I'm providing great service here. He's contributing back, and we all end happy in a very positive way. So there you have it. Service industry, a lot of things you can learn, a lot of memes and little inside jokes too. For example, if you work in food and dining, you'll have to get used to holding very hot plates. So there's a lot of memes on that and how people adjust. But thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Peace.